Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar.
Hey!
And we are, okay, atmosphere is good.
Prepare to decompress. Happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday. Delphian continues its Spirit Week. Monday was Star Wars. Tuesday was superheroes. Wednesday was nerds. Today is 80s day. And I have this jacket from the 80s, and I just thought it was really cool. So I grabbed a matching shirt.
And my green, I had a bright green shirt, was worried about.
That you would just disappear into the background. We today are talking about planets of our solar system.
Yes.
I was thinking to myself, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can kill 45 minutes talking about planets. And then I made, what was it, like 90 slides for 45 minutes? So we're probably not, I'm going to have to go fast today. Welcome to everyone here. We got people from Massachusetts, Chris says. I'm sure we have people from all over the place.
Hi, Aletta. Let's see some shout outs. Hi, Kiara.
Yeah.
Hi, Peyton.
It's Thursday. That is a scientific fact. Okay. We are, so now, as I was going about this, I'm like, I can't just talk about planets in our solar system. There's so much other interesting stuff. So I'm changing the name to Planets and Stuff of our solar system. I thought that was more scientific and accurate.
There is a lot of stuff out there.
There's a lot of stuff out there. We're not going to talk about the sun, and I'm not going to justify that. This is Mercury. Mercury is the first planet in our solar system. It's the closest one to the sun. It kind of looks like the moon. Check that out. For each of these planets, I put together a thing. What would it look like in our night sky if this planet was where the moon is? If the planet was as far away from Earth as the moon is, what would it look like? So here's the moon over here, and here's Mercury. It's barely bigger than our moon. So, I mean, I guess that would look pretty cool to have two things up there. But, yeah.
Can you imagine the surfing? The surfing if we had Mercury that close to us?
Ooh, that'd be cool. Oh,
the
just
waves.
Just wait till we get to some of the bigger planets, man. People are concerned about your 80s costume, and who are you from the 80s?
But there's a lot of cool people that just wear black t-shirts in the 80s.
Yeah, audio visual technicians for TV shows and stuff usually wore black t-shirts.
Yeah.
So he is a TV show audiovisual technician.
I'm a gaffer
From the 1980s.
Gaffers tape down cords.
There we go. All right. So where does Mercury get its name from? In Roman mythology, we're going to learn a bit about Roman mythology today. Mercury is the god of commerce, travel, and thievery. And he's the Roman version of the Greek god Hermes, the messenger of the gods. So they probably named Mercury because it moves so quickly across the sky. It moves quickly. It's bringing messages and stuff like that. I wrote this slide and I confused myself with the word.
And
sorry.
Mercury, the element, when you put it in your hands,
Moves really quick.
it moves really fast. And another name for Mercury is Quicksilver. So
Yeah.
Mercury always has this.
Don't hold Mercury in your hand. It's actually kind of poisonous.
They used to do that in not the 80s, before then.
Like the 1780s. And then they realize it's poisonous and
Yeah.
it's degrading our mental and physical health to hold it in our hands.
Yes.
Yeah. Mina, yes, I was Newt's commander yesterday because I am a nerd. Lorna, welcome. I know you're a few minutes late. That's totally okay. We're talking about planets. And let me pull up the official slide. Planets and stuff in our solar system. How old is Mercury? Everything in our solar system, all the planets that we're talking about, they're about 4.5 billion years old. That's when the solar system formed. So the sun, the planets, they all formed around the same time. Maybe a few years different from each other, but at the scale that we're talking about, close enough. Here's some basic stats about Mercury. I prepared all this for every planet, and I realized we're not really going to talk about this a whole lot on each one, but Mercury has no moons. It is barely bigger than our moon in terms of how wide it is. And the temperatures are either super hot or super cold, depending on whether you're in sunshine or not. So it can get as hot as 350 degrees Celsius, which is like almost 700 degrees Fahrenheit, or as cold as negative 170 degrees Celsius. It's super hot, super cold.
You know what? We should talk about AU. What an AU
Yes,
is. Right away.
yes. So I'm going to talk about AU. AU stands for astronomical unit. Astronomical is having to do with space. Unit is like one measurement thing, right? So a foot is a unit. An
Foot is this
inch
big, inch this big.
is a unit. A meter and a kilometer, these are each units of measurement. An astronomical unit is something that scientists use to describe distances in space because it's really big. So
specifically our solar system.
exactly. So one astronomical unit is the distance from the sun to the Earth, which is about 93 million miles. So Mercury is 0.38 AU from the sun. So it is 0.38. It's 38% the distance from the sun to the Earth.
We can show that. So if here,
Yeah.
here's
Yeah, here we go. We're going to pop out of here.
Okay, so if here is the sun and here is Earth, James, where is 0.38?
Mercury is about yay.
0.38.
Yeah, it's about there.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Good.
helps us gauge things when we think about the whole solar system.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, back to screen share. Now, here's something cool. So the rotation period, I am going to talk about certain definitions here. Rotation is how it orbits around, how it turns around its axis, right? So Earth's rotation period is 24 hours. That's one day for us. Every 24 hours, the Earth is turned in a complete circle around itself. The orbital period is how long it takes. An orbit is like the Earth moving around the sun, or in this case, Mercury moving around the sun. So Mercury, every 88 Earth days, it moves around the sun once. And every 58 Earth days, Mercury turns in a circle around itself. It rotates once every 58 days. So 58, 59 if you round it up. So the planet rotates about once every 59 Earth days. And a rotation that's slower than that of any other planet except for Venus. It's super slow. Due to the planet's slow rotation around its axis and rapid movement around the sun, a day on Mercury, the time between one sunrise and the next, is 176 Earth days.
That's a long day.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like its rotation is chasing. It's always having to chase the sunset. It's not just catching up every day. Okay. And then one last thing that I said about Mercury here is I'm also looking at the gravity. And so the gravity on Mercury is 0.38, what it would be here. Now that's funny because it's also 0.38 AU away from the Earth. Those aren't related. It's kind of an accident, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So if you weigh 100 pounds on Earth,
You're going to weigh 38 pounds on Mercury.
that's right.
Yeah. All right. Mercury, Venus. Okay. Well, that looks kind of cloudy on Venus. That's the weather report on Venus. Here is what Venus would look like if it were in our night sky, where at the same distance from the moon. There's the moon. There's Venus. That's really cool. Venus is already the easiest other planet to see in our night sky. I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was like, what is that bright thing over there on the horizon, just over the horizon? This was shortly after sunset. And it was this bright light. It was Venus. Venus is named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty. And people call it Earth's sister planet because it's almost exactly the same size as Earth. And that's about where the comparison stops, because this thing, okay, yes, it's only like 1,000 kilometers smaller than us, but its surface temperature at its coolest is like 32 degrees Celsius. Is that 50 degrees Fahrenheit? I think I did some wrong math on here. Anyway, like the coolest that it gets is a pretty good summer day here. The hottest it gets is like 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That's really hot. Its orbital period, the length of its year, is 225 Earth days, so not super different from ours. It's a little bit shorter. But its rotation period is 243 Earth days.
Whoa.
It rotates super slow. The thing's barely moving out there. And it has no moons, and its gravity is a little bit weaker than ours.
Yeah, and it has so much gas on it that it's reflecting most of the light. That's why it's such a bright planet. On Earth, the Earth absorbs most of the light that hits it.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't, if you were on another planet looking at Earth, Earth doesn't look as bright. But Venus, it's a nice little jewel of a planet there because it's shiny. All that atmosphere reflecting the sun.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad it's super reflective because it's really pretty in our night sky. So a Venusian, there's a big word just meaning having to do with Venus. A Venusian day is 243 Earth days and is longer than its year of 225 days. And oddly, Venus rotates from east to west, opposite of how it is on Earth. So if you're on Venus, the sun would rise in the west and set in the east.
These planets have different spins on it.
Yeah.
That's the big point. And everything's not uniform planet to planet as far as rotations, and there's different maths that go along with it. So that's one of the reasons people study it and try to figure out how you can send spacecraft to go investigate these more.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a question about rotation and orbiting and like, why is everything rotating? Why is everything orbiting? Because the universe likes motion in a certain way. If you were in our webinar, was it last week? Our webinar last week when we were talking about how stars are formed and die. All stars, all planets, they start out as a big cloud of dust and gas. And then gravity starts to bring that ball of dust and gas together, and the whole thing starts coming together and spinning as one thing. And most of that stuff turns into the star in that system, but there's smaller bits that kind of get like little junk or little smaller bits that form outside of the star, and those are the planets. Not that we're junk, just saying, like we're kind of leftover bits from the star forming.
Yeah, and I think the question, like if you have the moon orbiting Earth, and if we were to stop the moon, if we were to stop it from orbiting, it would fall into Earth because of the gravity. But that orbit is what keeps it away from the Earth. Without orbits, we would pull things in.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was stuff that didn't orbit, that didn't have that same spin and motion to it as everything else. It's just that stuff fell into a planet or fell into the sun billions of years ago because it wasn't moving
at
fast enough.
At just the right speed.
Just the right speed.
So when it gets in that orbital speed, then it locks into place.
Yep. I hope that answers that well enough. So Venus, kind of like Earth, but I would not want to live there. Not just because it's the same size. Here's another reason. Venus has a very dense atmosphere. It is 90 times more dense than Earth's. Because of this dense atmosphere, it traps more of the sun's heat than any other planet. And that's why its surface temperature is higher than Mercury's surface temperature, even though Mercury is way closer to the sun. Yeah.
The greenhouse effect.
Greenhouse effect.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my favorite planet of all. It's Earth. Here's some stuff about Earth. Earth is exactly as wide as the Earth is. That's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never would have thought that.
Yep. I mean, we have one moon. We measure gravity on Earth in one gravity because that's what gravity is on Earth. We compare everything to ourselves, which is totally fine. In order to measure something, to learn about something, you need to compare it to something else. If I'm talking about my height, I need to say how many inches or centimeters I am, or I could say like, I am just a little bit taller than Diego. Like you need to compare things in order to know what's going on. Earth is the only planet that does not get its name from Greek or Roman mythology. Earth comes from the Old English word eorth, I assume, which means ground. I mean, it's not a very inspired name.
Ground.
Ground. Earth. In German, it's called Erd. In Latin, it's terra. You hear terra used a lot in like science fiction stories for like another name for Earth. In Swedish, it's jord, and the ancient Greeks call it Gaia. Earth has life. That's pretty cool.
Welcome.
It's the only place in the solar system that you can get a decent piece of pizza. And it's the only planet in the solar system where there's a chance of being attacked by a bear. And Diego, I know that you're a little suspicious of that last fact, so I brought some extra. I brought another slide.
You can be attacked by a bear
to help reinforce my point. You'll see that on Mercury and Venus, there's no risk of bear attack per this graphic, and on Earth, relative to the rest of the solar system, there's really a very high risk of bear attack because we have bears. As soon as you get away from Earth and to Mars, there's again no risk of bear attack.
That is a good place to live.
So,
I mean, it's a bad place to live because of the bear attacks, but there's a lot of other things going for us here on Earth.
Yeah. So anyway, you just have to balance your desire for pizza with your fear of bears and just see which one outweighs it. If you don't like bears, I recommend moving to Mars. Yeah. Okay, good. I had to have fun with that one.
Good.
We're going to talk about the moon, and people call it the moon because until 1610, when Galileo Galilei discovered 4 moons around the planet of Jupiter, we didn't even know that other moons existed. So the moon also in different languages has different names because that's just how it goes. That's really cool. In Latin, it's called Luna, and in Greek, it's called Selene. Selene is the goddess of the moon in Greek.
Isn't Kelly's dog named Luna?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Luna, I like that name.
so that's why I would call it the moon, even though there's lots of other moons, dozens of other moons in our solar system. We're going to talk about some of those.
Does anybody have a pet named after a celestial object? I want to know that. If you do, let us know.
Yeah. Shrishti asks, how come we didn't name Earth after a Roman god? That's a really good question, Shrishti. I think that we should have. I think that it would have been a lot more consistent. But there's also one planet that's named after a Greek god. Mm-hmm. And even though the Romans just basically copied the Greeks' homework when it came to the gods and stuff like that. But that's okay. It makes sense that we would figure out what to call our own planet first, and then only later become aware of other planets even existing. Okay, good. We have dogs that are named Max, and Milo's middle name is Roman.
Oh, someone's
cool.
Cat's name is.
All right, Evelyn's cat's name is Luna. Friend's cat's name is Luna.
Cool.
That okay, good. That's really cool. Ziggy Stardust. Yes, Ziggy Stardust definitely counts as an awesome pet name.
Cool.
Okay.
Paul, Mimi. Cool.
Good. So gravity on the moon is 0.16. So it's very weak gravity compared to that of Earth, which means you get to do some really cool stuff up there. You saw that, there's footage of astronauts like bouncing around on the moon. I can't wait to play football on the moon. Someone playing football or golf.
I want the NBA to book a SpaceX trip to the moon and have a game.
There we go. Okay, so the surface temperature on the moon, very similar to Mercury. It's either very hot or very cold, depending on if you're in the shadow or in the sun. It can be over 100 degrees Celsius, or it can be negative 170 degrees Celsius. Sunshine or shadow, there's a big difference to the temperature because there's no atmosphere to help even everything out like there is on Earth. The moon
La Luna
rotates once every 27.32 days, and it revolves around the Earth once every 27.32 days. This means that only one side of the moon ever faces the Earth. You, our friends, have only ever, with your own eyes, seen the close side of the moon. We have not, with our own eyes, seen the far side of the moon. We know what the far side of the moon looks like. We've had, there's a rover driving around on it right now, but we've never seen it with our own eyes. This is called tidal lock, or being tidally locked. It means, and we're going to hear this term a lot as we keep talking about other moons in our solar system. Almost every single moon in the solar system is tidally locked to its planet. Only one side ever faces its planet.
Interesting. Does that help them survive as moons rather than getting
I don't know
I
about
don't
helping
know.
survive, but it's just physics.
Yeah.
You know, yes, it's a nice sphere and stuff like that, but one side is going to be a little bit heavier than the other side, just because it's not perfectly symmetrical. If you cut it in half, one side would weigh just a little bit more. Like when you're trying to split a cookie with your sibling, and it's like, okay, you cut the cookie in half, I get to pick the first piece. You know that whatever you do, no matter how perfect your cut is, one side, one half of the cookie is going to be just a little bit bigger than the other one.
Always make someone else split.
There you go. That's what I do to my kids. I say, you cut, you pick first. And you can see the advanced math happening in their heads. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. The moon is not made of cheese.
This is important to get.
We haven't
on there
been
too.
back since the 1970s when we discovered that it wasn't made of cheese. But, you know, right now NASA's like, is it though? So we're going to go back to the moon on 2024 and land some more astronauts there to really figure out, is it made of cheese? And if it's not made of cheese, if it's not, there's at least water up there, and that's useful.
Yeah.
Here's Mars. Here's my second favorite planet. This is closer to being
Mars.
like a sister planet to Earth than Venus is, because we could live on Mars much easier than we could living on Venus. It's not super big, though. Here's how big it would look in our night sky compared to the moon if it was at the same distance that the moon is. It's much smaller than Earth. It's only about 4,200 miles across. It can get very cold there. Lowest surface temperature is around negative 140 degrees Celsius. That's negative 220 degrees Fahrenheit. But it does get above freezing on the surface of the planet. It can get up to 60. One time they even recorded 70, almost 75 degrees Fahrenheit on the equator in the middle of summer. So there's some good signs there. Its rotation period, the length of its day is very close to Earth's. It's 24 hours and 37 minutes. It takes a bit longer to orbit the sun than the Earth does. It takes 687 Earth days, almost 2 years for one Martian year. And its gravity is about 1/3 that of Earth's gravity. So it's a little bit closer to home than the moon is in terms of, it's got a very thin atmosphere. You can't breathe it, but it's just a bit more comfortable there.
One of the biggest problems with with Mars becoming another Earth is that it does not have a magnetic field. It has magnetic fields in certain locations, but it doesn't have a big one that protects the planet from cosmic radiation.
Yeah.
Earth, we have this nice, beautiful magnetosphere that deflects.
Yeah.
That deflects.
We have a shield. We have like the Earth has an invisible shield, like in Star Trek when they're like, shields up. We have a shield up.
Earth has
Mars
that.
does not. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
So Mars is named after the Roman god of war, which is understandable. It's red. It's the color of blood. It looks reddish to our eye when we look up in the night sky and see it. So I think that astronomers did a good job of naming that one. Nailed it. And it's two moons named Phobos and Deimos. Now, according to Roman myth, Mars, the god, rode on a chariot pulled by two horses named Phobos and Deimos, meaning fear and panic. And the two small moons of Mars are named after those two mythical horses. That's a good naming scheme. I like that. That's very consistent. Mars has an atmosphere, but it's only 1/100th as dense as Earth's. So Venus, it's 90 times more dense than Earth's. And Earth is 100 times more dense than Mars.
That's why when I heard about the helicopter, I went, what? How does that even
Yeah,
make
we're landing a
sense?
helicopter on Mars, but it has to be super light and it has to have super big blades. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to take off in that very thin air. Now, the sky on Mars, the air, if you're like looking up, enjoying the nice view on a nice 70-degree hot summer day, it looks red, but the sunrises and sunsets are blue, opposite of that on Earth.
Cool.
And scientists have confirmed that 1 billion or more years ago, Mars did have liquid water. They don't know exactly for how long. They're trying to figure out, was it fresh water? Was it salt water? But they know for a fact that there was liquid water on Mars a long time ago. And that's really exciting.
And the big question is, what happened to the water? There's
Right.
different theories. Some people think that solar wind blew the water away. Some people think that it's just trapped in underground systems.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different arguments for that.
Yeah, they're pretty confident that there's water below the surface of Mars.
They found water ice.
Yep. You like scratch the surface and there's water ice hiding down there. And if you look at the picture here, you can see caps on the north and south poles of the planet. But those are that white stuff that is not made of water ice. That is carbon dioxide ice. Carbon dioxide, the stuff that you breathe out.
Dry ice.
Yeah.
It was dry ice.
Most of the Martian atmosphere is made of carbon dioxide, not oxygen and nitrogen like ours. So
I know what likes to breathe carbon dioxide.
Plants.
Plants.
Yep. Bruno Mars's favorite planet is Mars. Peyton, I think you're probably right. He's not called, Bruno Jupiter. Speaking of Jupiter, yes, we're going to skip the asteroid belt. We're skipping it. We're going straight to Jupiter.
Blast it out.
Because I'm bad at planning and we don't have enough time. Here is, if Jupiter was in our sky at the same distance as the moon, that's what it would look like in our night sky. Massive. It's absolutely massive. Look at that thing. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah.
You don't want to see that view.
Its diameter is big. Its temperature is cold. Its average distance from the sun is much farther than ours. So you see 5.2 AU. Again, an astronomical unit is the distance from the sun to the earth. So do that once and then do it 4 more times and then do it another 0.2 times. And that's for Jupiter. It's getting pretty far out there. It takes 12 Earth years for Jupiter to orbit the sun, but it only takes almost 10 hours for Jupiter to rotate.
For a day on Jupiter.
One day on Jupiter is about 9 hours and 55 minutes.
That's a fast day.
If you were to stand on the surface of Jupiter, which you cannot because it is just a bunch of gas. It's just clouds, right? There's no solid surface to stand on. It would be 2.4 Gs, 2.5 times the gravity that we have on Earth. So if you weighed 100 pounds and you were, standing somehow on the surface of Jupiter, you would weigh 240 pounds, which is about what I felt that I weighed after I ate the pie last night. Anyway, Jupiter has a lot of moons, 79 moons. We have 1 moon on Earth. Jupiter has 79 of them. Now, I couldn't talk about Jupiter without talking about some of its moons. So here we're getting into the and stuff part of the presentation, right? Now, Jupiter is named after the king of gods in Roman mythology, which totally makes sense because it's the largest planet. Jupiter has thin, dark rings that are very hard to see. It has rings like Saturn, but you can't see them. They're made of dust that's kicked up when its 79 moons are hit by meteors and stuff like that. So here's the 4 most interesting moons around Jupiter. Here's the size of the Earth and our moon for comparison. You can see that Europa is about the same size as our own moon. Io is a bit bigger. Ganymede and Callisto are quite a bit bigger than our own moon. In fact, Ganymede's larger than Mercury.
Wow.
Yeah, if Ganymede was orbiting the sun instead of orbiting Jupiter, it would definitely be a planet.
And Europa has more liquid water than Earth.
Yeah.
Crazy. The chances of...
Yeah. Oh, Isis is asking, what's the temperature on Jupiter? This is life or death. It is literally life or death. No, it's just death. Yeah. So not only can you not breathe there because there's no breathable atmosphere, but the hottest that it gets on the surface of Jupiter is negative 121 degrees Celsius. That's 100 and negative 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, it's 5 times farther from the sun than the Earth is. So yes, it's getting plenty of light. It's just not enough to heat it up to what we humans like. All right, so we talked about that. We talked about, here's some of the moons. We're going to talk about some of the moons. Io is, look at, that's a real color image of Io. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on the surface of Io with different metals and things like that that make these colorful patterns on there. We see, so the surface temperature, negative 163 degrees Celsius. It's cold because it's far away from the sun. Rotation period, tidal lock. So like I talked about with our own moon, only one side ever faces the Earth. Only one side of Io ever faces Jupiter. It is tidally locked to Jupiter. But it orbits Jupiter every about 1.8 Earth
All
days.
the way around Jupiter. That is cool.
Every like almost 2 days.
That blows me away. I just learned something.
Yeah.
Wow.
And its gravity is 0.18 Gs. Gs. 0.18 gravities
Pretty close
of
to the moon.
Earth. So you would definitely be more, it would kind of be like being on the moon where you would have these big long jumps that you would be able to do. This is an artist that put together what he thinks it might look like on the surface of Io, looking up at Jupiter. And you can see that volcano there. Io is the only place in the solar system other than Earth that we know that there are active volcanoes happening. And there's over 400 active volcanoes on Io. There's tons of them. This stuff is happening all over the planet because it's super close to Jupiter. And as it orbits Jupiter, it gets like squeezed and pulled and squeezed and pulled.
Oh, especially with that rotation.
As it moves around Jupiter.
Less than 2 days, it goes all the way around Jupiter.
Yeah.
That just blows me away. I didn't know this.
Yeah. So everyone take your hands.
What?
Take your hands. Put them together. Rub. They're starting to get warm, right? That's friction. Now do that for an entire moon. Have it doing this all day, every day for the last 4.5 billion years. And it generates a lot of heat. And that's how that rock on the inside of Io is staying hot and liquid, and then it shoots out because Io is pretty close to Jupiter. Here is another really interesting moon from Jupiter.
This is my favorite one.
This is Europa. Yeah. So again, it has tidal lock, so only one side of it ever faces Jupiter. Its gravity is much weaker than that of Io. It's 0.13 gravities. It orbits Jupiter about every 3.5 days. Surface temperature, very cold. Oh, negative 171 degrees Celsius. And just in Fahrenheit, it's just cold.
It's just
minus Fahrenheit.
Minus cold.
I forgot to look that number up. Here's what an artist think it might look like on the surface of Europa.
And it's a
Jupiter.
super smooth surface.
It is the smoothest object in the solar system. Yeah.
Next to me.
Scientists believe that there's a liquid ocean somewhere around 100 kilometers beneath that thick, icy crust of Europa. And it's thought that the tidal effects, meaning, again, that pull and push of gravity from Jupiter, the thing that keeps Io nice and hot and, well, the inside of it at least. So it's thought that pushing and pulling, it's not as intense on Europa as it is on Io, but it still happens. They think that heat keeps water liquid deep under the surface of Europa. Europa has twice as much water on it as there is on Earth.
If we landed something there, drilled in, put a camera in, imagine seeing like a giant squid or something under that liquid water. It would just change.
Yeah.
It would just
or like that goldfish that, you know.
Jar Jar Binks.
I really hope there's not Jar Jar Binks on Europa. Oh, no. All right. Let's see what's coming next here. Ganymede. Okay, now this one, I forgot to put miles in here. I spent a lot of time on this slideshow, you can tell.
You had a lot. In your defense, there's a lot to cover in the solar system.
Did I say anything cool about Ganymede?
You're doing great, man. You're doing great. I wanted to send James to Houston and
I'll
do
go.
some presentations for some other teachers there.
I volunteer as tribute.
Right.
Again, it's tidally locked, so only one side of it ever faces Jupiter. What a view that would be. And its gravity is a bit stronger than that of Europa, it's 0.14 Gs. So still a very weak gravity compared to Earth, but you're looking at something similar to the moon, maybe. This is just an artist's idea of what it might be on the surface of Ganymede, and with Jupiter there in the background. How cool would that
some
be?
Advanced spacesuits.
Yeah, some cool spacesuits there. So Ganymede is 8% larger than Mercury, and it has more than twice the mass of Earth's moon. So even though it's a little bit larger than Earth's moon in terms of how wide it is, it's got more stuff in it. It's more dense than Earth's moon. And scientists believe that there may be a large saltwater ocean, maybe like 124 miles below the surface. That seems like a very specific number.
Yeah.
They're not like, no, it's just down there. They're like, no, it's 124. Yeah.
I would love to be in these technical conversations and to see how they
That would be a
figure
mutant.
that out.
Yeah. Oh, Lorna's wondering if there would be like mutant turtles on these
It's a
moons.
strange
Lorna,
universe.
I love it. Yes. They might
Mutant
be teenage
turtles.
mutant, and they might be ninjas.
Yeah, so right when they turn 13, they're considered teenage mutant
Ninja turtles. Yep.
But-
And we can't see them, so they're ninjas.
Yeah.
Okay. It's confirmed. And here's the last of the Jupiter moons that I'm going to talk about today. Here's Callisto. And Callisto, I mean, that is a gorgeous picture. Look at that. That's a real picture of Callisto. And again, it's tidally locked to Jupiter. Again, I forgot to say how many degrees Fahrenheit, but it's negative 136 degrees Celsius. It's super cold there. It's too far from the sun. And here's an image of what it might look like on the surface of Callisto there. And of course, we're planting an American flag.
Oh, question. I want to ask people at home, how cold is the coldest things can get? I want to hear what they have to say, because there's actually a limit. Things can only get so cold. Now, the heat, things can get almost like infinitely hot. Things can just get hotter and hotter and hotter.
Yeah,
and
we were
hotter.
talking about stars yesterday. The cores of some of those stars are like 150 million degrees Celsius, which sounds like just a made up big number. I don't know. But no, like 150 million degrees Celsius is a real thing.
But things can only get so cold. There's a limit on the way the universe works and how cold
Yeah.
it gets.
Oh, Isis says, what's the gravity of Callisto? I'm going too fast. I know. I'm trying to get through all the slides because
Oh,
we got
yeah.
a lot more and
I
we got
gotta
like
be
8
quiet.
minutes
Stop
left.
asking questions.
So if you missed anything here, please do go back and
research. Go learn at home.
Yeah, you can finish this research yourself, continue it. There's a lot of cool stuff I could not talk about today.
We have books at Heron too.
Yeah, and also our YouTube video will be up in just a couple of days on Delphian's YouTube channel. Gravity on Callisto is 0.12 Gs. So it's one of the weaker gravity pulls of these moons that we've talked about. And we've got people with answers. Sarah and Jackson and many others say absolute 0.
Good.
Yes. Lorna says some number. Technically correct. Yes. So absolute 0. There is what is absolute 0 in Celsius? I forget.
Minus 273 point something.
Negative 273 degrees Celsius is as cold gets. Yes. Okay. Now, one cool thing about Callisto is it has more craters on it than any other object in our solar system. It's far enough away from Jupiter that its surface isn't constantly being like remade, and Io has volcanoes and stuff, so craters will get covered up, and Europa is just made of water and ice pretty much, so it's constantly shifting. Callisto, it's made of rock, and it's far enough away that it's not constantly being kind of reformed. So a lot of those early asteroid impacts on it are still there. Gotta go quick. Here's again that picture of Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto.
I like this picture. I hadn't seen this before.
Isn't
This
this great?
presentation.
Yeah.
Great job, James, getting this research.
Saturn, the ringed planet. This is what it would look like if it was in our sky where our moon is. There's our moon. There's Saturn. That would be gorgeous. Saturn is named for the Roman god of agriculture, growing stuff. Its diameter is big, not as big as Jupiter, but still huge. Surface temperature as low as negative 185 Celsius or as hot as negative 122 Celsius. Yeah. Its distance, it is almost 10 times farther from the sun than the Earth is. It rotates every 10 and a half hours. It takes almost 30 years, Earth years, to go around the sun.
That's a quick
Now get this,
spin.
it's got 82 moons.
82 moons.
3 more than Jupiter until they discover more around Jupiter, which will probably happen in like a couple of weeks.
There's a race. There's a race going
Yeah.
on.
So while Saturn's rings are very wide, they're I put that there to remind myself to figure it out in miles. So the rings are 127,000 kilometers wide, but they're only 20 meters thick.
That's less than a
20
mile.
Yeah, it's a lot less than a mile. It's less than a football field. Thick.
This is like, I'm gonna have to do the math on this, but this is pretty much for as far as a solar system. This is razor thin
Razor thin.
relative to its distance. It's like even below. I would bet that it doesn't scale like that. I would bet that it's
Super thin. Yeah.
thinner than razor thin.
And the rings formed when comets and other objects got too close to Saturn and they broke apart. I'm gonna not take my time on the rest of these slides. I'm gonna go quickly, and then I hope that you can go back and watch the YouTube video and pause it to look at some of the more specific numbers. Or I also recommend you go and do your own research. If I went too quick on Saturn and I didn't cover enough, right after this, Google Saturn and figure out more about it. Here's another. This is a real picture of Saturn taken from the far side of it so that you can see the other rings. So usually you see these rings of Saturn, but there's more rings. There's that one and that one.
This is
and
a
that
real
one.
picture?
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's a real picture. All right, here's the picture of the bottom of Saturn from
So
the South
interesting.
Pole. And that looks fake, but that's real. Nature actually made that shape. Is making that shape on the bottom of
I
Saturn.
believe it's from the North Pole.
The North Pole.
Yeah. but it's like, why did this shape come about? Scientists don't know. There's some computer simulations. There's different ideas, winds going each way, but it just continues to hold at this perfect hexagon.
That's so cool. We're going to talk a couple of moons of Saturn really quick. Here's Titan. It looks like just a fuzzy bit because it's got a very thick atmosphere. This is a real picture from the surface of Titan. We landed one thing on Titan and it lasted like an hour. Okay, I can't stop and say all these numbers, but it's really cool and we want to go there. Saturn's move of Enceladus. This thing looks really icy, and it is. Now get this. See, this is a real picture. These are geysers, ice water volcanoes, basically shooting water up out of Enceladus. And actually the stuff that shoots off of Enceladus forms one of the rings, one of the farther rings around Saturn.
Oh, cool.
And there's a mission being planned right now by NASA. Enceladus is another thing like Europa, where it's a thick layer of ice with a liquid ocean underneath it. And if we landed on Europa, we would have to drill down through 100 kilometers of ice in order to get to any liquid. Enceladus gives the water to us in space.
Cool.
So there's a mission being planned where they're going to take a spacecraft and fly it through one of those ice geysers and scoop up some of that ice just floating through space.
I know one of the JPL scientists that's working on this. Her name, ironically, is Ocean. So if you're listening,
That's amazing.
Hi, Ocean.
Oh, man. We are out of time. I'm going to keep going. All right. So here's what it might look like from the surface of Enceladus looking at Saturn. You can see these ice geysers. Numbers, I'm going to say there just for a second and then move on so that it shows up on the YouTube video. Here's Uranus. Okay. It again looks, there's not a lot of exact features around it. It's just this really cool blue color. This is how big it would look in our night sky if it was where the moon was. Here's interesting numbers about it that, again, I'm only going to stay here very briefly and then move along. But it has 27 moons. That's more than Earth. All right, named after the Greek god of the sky. and it spins on its side. Some people were talking earlier in the Q&A part that isn't there a planet that spins on its side? Yes, it spins on its side. It also spins backwards compared
Saturn
to
does
all
that
the
too.
other
Saturn has like
planets in
almost
the solar system.
Saturn almost has a 90-degree spin.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. So
I actually missed that
the
fact.
North Pole is almost, and it goes out of
That's cool.
phase too.
Yeah. So scientists think that Uranus probably got hit when it was forming as a planet and it had already figured out which way it wants to spin. It probably got hit with something really big that knocked it over. Here's Neptune, another really cool looking, look at that deep blue color. This is what it would look like in our night sky if it was where the moon was. And it's cold, it's far away. Yeah, I'm going to pause really quickly there for the numbers to catch on. Okay, good. So this is after the Roman god of the sea. It has faint rings around it. We can't see it from Earth. In fact, you can't see Neptune at all from Earth. This one wasn't discovered until 1864 when we had some pretty powerful telescopes to look out there and see it.
Discovered with math.
Right. It was discovered with math, and then we saw it with telescopes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that, go math.
Yeah. And I know what you're saying. Why is Pluto on here? But I said we're going to talk about planets and stuff in our solar system because guess what? Pluto, not a planet. Not a planet. But it is really awesome. There's a lot of cool stuff that we can learn about it. I'm going to leave this up very momentarily. It's smaller than our own moon. Do you see this heart-shaped kind of bit right here? See that? That's about the size of Texas. So Pluto has a heart the size of Texas. That should make you love it. Makes me love it. Is this picture real? I actually don't know which picture that was. All these pictures that I'm talking about, let's see. Let me go back really quick. Not real. That's a painting. That's real. That's a fake. That's a real picture of Uranus, photoshopped onto a real picture of Earth. So that's not real. But this little circle of it is. That's a real picture of Uranus. That's a real picture of Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a real picture of Neptune photoshopped onto another one. And that is a real picture of Pluto. Real picture of Pluto. Okay. I'm just going to leave it there real quick. Not a planet. I will fight you on this because it's not. All right. I knew I was going to go over time. We barely fit it in. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes in the Q&A section at the end of this after I turn off the camera and mic. There is a lot more, a ton more to learn about the solar system than I was able to cover in this very short period of time. I hope you learned that Earth is where life is, and it's where pizza is, and where bears are, but I'm willing to take the risk. To learn more about our solar system and a bunch of other stuff, go to heronbooks.com. There's a ton of educational material available on there. Some of the courses are available for free right now. The rest, you can get 30% off by using that promo code right there, Delphian30. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you later.
Goodbye. Have a great week.